What's up? This is EJ Stewart.
What if I dropped 40 days, 40 nights?
One, you can't do it.
All you are your words. If there's anything you learned about me, I'm gonna keep it 100 with you.
Going to be a long 40 days this year.
My skill shot will hold for your city for 40 days.
Rest in peace to all my ops.
If you're the guy who can't finish a sandwich, you think you can go 40 days? This isn't normal!
Oh, you're wrong, brother. I'm gonna go the distance.
Let's go! Let's go is right. What's up? This is EJ Stewart. You are watching 40 Days and Counting, where I, EJ Stewart, do 2 live stream shows per week. One Tuesday, 6 p.m., one Friday, 8 a.m. And this will be the first week in a while that we do our standard Tuesday and Friday show. I didn't promote this show quite as much as I usually do, in part because I didn't know if I'd be able to do today's show. I actually expected to not be available today, in large part because I thought I was going to be in the city that was now owned by Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart and Carl Anthony Towns. I thought it was going to be Philadelphia. I thought it was going to be away. A mishap on my calendar almost had me on an Amtrak train traveling to Philadelphia, ready for all the smoke and for all the trolling that I was going to do landing in Philadelphia today. And turns out that's actually a trip that's not happening yet. So I jumped the gun on that. So I was like, you know what? I can't go to Philly to troll some Sixer fans and troll some Philadelphians, but I can come on this live stream and talk Knicks ball and talk NBA playoffs and talk NBA draft lottery. A lot has happened on this show, or rather, in sports, since we last did 40 Days and Counting. So we're going to have a fun one tonight. We got a lot to get to on today's show. As you probably hear my dog Lita out there. Lita, be quiet. A lot to get to on this show. We'll be talking about, like I mentioned, NBA playoffs. Lakers get swept out of the first round. The second round of the playoffs. The Thunder advanced to the Western Conference Finals, and a game that was really highly competitive last night. So what does that mean for the Thunder in terms of how they're playing right now? They have not lost a playoff game yet in this postseason. And also, what does it mean for the Lakers, who now enter an offseason of certain uncertainty, which is a funny way to put that. But definitely a lot of questions, right? You got questions about LeBron James, and Rob Pelinka and LeBron both spoke about the future of the King in LA both today and yesterday. We also got a big question about what to do with Austin Reeves. Apparently, Luka Doncic, the star player who did not play in this postseason, is putting his thumb on the scale in a major way to bring back Austin Reeves and to commit to him long term. So we'll see if the Lakers are willing to do that. And then and so we'll get into all of that. So a lot of stuff happened with the Lakers, obviously, of course. Now the Thunder will wait on a matchup between the Spurs and the T-Wolves. That will happen tonight. I want to talk about that series too, because I'm a little surprised at some of the commentary I saw coming out of Game 5. A great win for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Game 4, I'm sorry. Great win by the Minnesota Timberwolves, who tied up to have Game 5 tonight. And Wemby was ejected in this game. And I'm very surprised at the amount of people who seem to want a lot more to happen to him. But we'll get into all that. We'll get into also maybe the future of the Philadelphia 76ers after they were eliminated in the playoffs by the Knicks, and what could be the impending firing of one Daryl Morey, their president, who's been there for a little while now. He's one of the more high-profile basketball executives, and with another second-round exit, this one coming in complete embarrassing fashion, or regardless of whether you're a 7 seed or not, to get swept and have another team's fans take over your arena is never going to sit well with any NBA team owner or billionaire. So it sounds like Daryl Morey could be on his last leg, so we'll discuss that. We'll also get some NFL stuff as well, because I do want to discuss some of these games that are being announced. Some pretty fun stuff, I feel like, happening with the NFL schedule. I think they're doing a pretty good job in terms of the certain teams are put into certain spots and certain games we're going to see in high-profile holidays and high-profile dates for the NFL this upcoming season. So really excited to talk about some NFL football. We will get into the NBA draft lottery. The Wizards were awarded the number 1 pick in the draft, which is obviously a huge story, but then there's some big stories about some teams that may be effed up in a major way. And the Indiana Pacers coming away with no first-round picks is a disaster class. So we'll get into all that. This is going to be a fun one. 40 Days and Counting, streaming live in multiple spots, including on YouTube. Shout out to the YouTube fam. If you want to watch on YouTube, you can, of course, search New Generation Media on YouTube. That is where we stream live all New Generation Media content, so we want to make sure you keep it locked in there. Also streaming live on X, EJ_Stewart. Make sure you follow me on X. streaming live as well on IG Live, Instagram. Action EJ is where you'll find me on Instagram. And thanks to the good folks of Buzzer, we're also streaming live today on Buzzer. So I know there's a lot of great content going on. I know Kayla Becker is doing her show right now. So if you're watching Kayla Becker, of course, shout out to you. You can find a way to watch us both. That'd be great. But I'm streaming live on Buzzer. BZZR is the @ find. Or go to bzzr.com. And again, that's the new startup sports app that's gonna, I think, maybe change the landscape when it comes to social media and sports content creators. I'm doing some really awesome work with them. I'm doing a draft show with my guy Kendall Stewart, who we do draft shows, on New Generation Media. Now we're lucky to do one on Buzzer. Now it'll come out every Thursday at 6 p.m. So we'll have even so much more to talk about with the draft lottery and more draft content on Thursday. Speaking of Kendall Stewart, he's going to join me at 6:30 to break down all this stuff we're going to be discussing about the NBA draft. So a lot to get to. Plenty of time tonight. This is going to be a fun one. Sit back and relax. Your boy EJ Stewart rocking with you here on 40 Days and Counting. So I do want to begin quickly talking about the Thunder sweep. So the Thunder, they eliminated the Los Angeles Lakers last night in a 4-game sweep. Highly competitive game. Shot making was unreal in this one. The Lakers certainly didn't let go of the rope. The Lakers certainly tried to extend this series in a major way, but what we've seen from the Thunder is the way they're able to execute and play at, regardless of how well a team is playing at the highest level. It's just going to make them a really tough out. And the fact that they're also doing this without Jalen Williams, and you're able to have the exploits of AJ Mitchell, Jared McCain, who had kind of been in and out of rotation, not even playing that much in the first round, all of a sudden has become an absolute weapon off that bench. The Thunder are no joke, and the Lakers are an extremely flawed team. They're not a team that is on the Thunder's level, and it's no surprise that they were dispatched pretty quickly. I thought they played hard. I thought they tried, but, trying only gets you so far in the NBA. And when you have, the star power and the expectation of, the Los Angeles Lakers, trying is not enough. So they get swept in this one, which, advances the Thunder to the second round, and asks a lot of questions about what comes next for the Lakers, because you got a big question mark coming with LeBron James, and we don't really know what he's going to do. LeBron has been kept it close to the vest in regards to what he expects in terms of whether he will continue to play in the NBA, whether or not he will retire, whether he could consider maybe wanting to be traded to another team. All these things are potentially on the table. He also has the opportunity to potentially also just leave, right? He is a free agent after this year. He has a player option, rather, for this year. So he can also just decide, I've had enough. I'm just going to find a way to get out of here. Oh, sorry. He's a free agent. I'm messing that up. No, he's a full free agent. He exercised that player option last year. So, so he has the opportunity just to, in theory, sign somewhere else for the minimum, or if someone has max money, the max. So a lot of questions regarding the King. I want you guys to hear from LeBron, because he answered questions yesterday. And he was asked about, hey, we talked a lot about retirement. What's going to happen with you? He wanted to clarify something, that it's not him that talked about retirement. It's people that have speculated and asked him questions. But here was LeBron on his future, which essentially he said, I don't know what's going to happen.
I think you guys asked me about it, and I've answered questions. Yeah, I don't think I've come out and like, oh, retirement is coming. So... with my future, I don't know, obviously. This is obviously we're still fresh from, obviously losing, and I don't know. I don't know what the future holds for me, obviously, as it stands right now tonight. I got a lot of time. I'll sit back, like I think I said it last year after we lost, I think, to Minnesota, to go back and recalibrate with my family and talk with them and spend some time with them. And then when the time comes, I obviously, you guys know what I decide to do.
I've gone back and forth on what I think he's going to do. The vibe I got from him yesterday didn't sound like somebody who was about to retire. I'm being real. Now, the guy I saw, shedding tears in Cleveland when they played that tribute video for him, that guy looked like a guy ready to retire. I would think if this was the last game of your NBA career, they even asked him, how'd you feel leaving the court knowing this could be the last one? He said he didn't really, remember. He was like, I don't remember how this compares to my other one because I'm old. He sounds like a guy that's going to play again next year. That's the feeling I get. Whether or not it's for the Lakers is interesting because in some ways I don't know if it's really up to him. Like, I guess in theory he could decide if he really doesn't want to be back to just not sign with the Lakers and sign with whoever team is willing to give him a contract. But the reality also becomes, if he does want to play for a championship, if he does want to play for a contender, I don't see any contenders out there that have, max money to give him, or at minimum have $40 million to give him. I don't think that that's coming his way. So when I think about, as Kendall joins us here, when I think about LeBron James's future and what to expect for the King, I don't look at what I saw yesterday. Saw a guy that's gonna retire. So what do you do? Does he decide to just come back and be third fiddle? You mentioned yesterday that he's never been third fiddle before in his life, and he's this is something that he tried to learn on the fly. He thinks he did a pretty good job on. These are all questions that are going to be very interesting to answer. But when I heard LeBron Kendall yesterday, he didn't sound to me like someone at all who was going to retire anytime soon. Did you get that vibe from him yesterday as Kendall joined us here?
I didn't get that vibe either. LeBron is a guy that clearly plans a lot of his stuff out in advance. I think he knows what he wants to do. I think he's known what he wants to do for a long time. And to me, I think there's a guy that clearly has at least another year left in the tank, maybe multiple. And if he does have multiple years left in the tank, he's certainly going to play it out.
Yeah, I feel like he certainly is good. Sorry. Yeah,
again,
sorry.
As a guy.
That's sorry. Okay, you froze for me. That's the only reason why I didn't hear you. Sorry, you can continue. My bad.
No, sorry. I was just like, just for a guy that has kind of postured like he won it out, earlier in the season. I don't know if the plan has changed because he played really well, down the stretch, and he played well in the playoffs. Honestly, the only elephant in the room for him is just going to be the Bronny James situation, and what does leaving mean for Bronny's future? And that's something I certainly think he's going to weigh. And does that mean that does Bronny go wherever LeBron goes? Because I think that's the only thing that would tether him to LA is Bronny being there.
Yeah, and this is the dangerous game you play when you bring your family into business, right? Like, the reality is we've seen Bronny James play for this team for 2 years. I haven't seen much for the Lakers to feel like this is somebody we need to continue to invest time and energy in to ensure that he could be a contributing player. He has shown at times flashes, but he still seems well away from being a viable rotational player in the NBA team that's any good. So if he leaves, I'm thinking on the Lakers, the first thing I'm doing is maybe trying to find a way to open up that roster spot. Like, I just haven't seen enough from Bronny James for him to make sense to be on the team, unless they just want like a guy that in theory could sell merch. And I don't know if he's selling tickets, but certainly selling merch probably, and certainly maybe brings more opportunities marketing wise because he is a celebrity in his own right. But LeBron, this is, he wanted to play with his son. He wanted Bronny to have the opportunity to play in the NBA, and the best chance he had was to basically, whether he strong-armed the Lakers, whether he strongly suggested, whether he begged, I don't know what he did. But wherever the situation was, he got the Lakers to agree to draft him. That was the best case scenario to ensure that Bronny James was going to have an opportunity to play in the NBA, not as like some like two-way G League guy. And this is now the thing that comes as he's playing in a place that he probably has outgrown in terms of just like where he is and what the team is doing, right? They seem to be, I've seen people use the example, it feels like a divorced couple that's still living together. Like, like the Lakers already have Luka Doncic, like they've already moved on, like they've made it clear he's the face of the franchise now. LeBron is not the center of their world anymore, and yet he's still there because he really doesn't want to leave LA, and it's advantageous to be on the team because it means Bronny sticks around. So it's like, it feels like two partners that are kind of stuck. I want you to quickly hear Kendall, and I'll play for the audience as well, Rob Pelinka, because he was asked about this today, and he had an interesting way to put this. He says that the Lakers will wait for LeBron to make a decision in a way so that they can honor him.
In terms of LeBron, we probably haven't seen a player that has honored the game to the extent that he's honored the game. He's given so much to his teammates, to this organization. And the thing we want to do more than anything else is honor him back. And I think the first order of business there is allowing him to spend the time he needs to decide what his next step are. Does he want to play another year in the NBA? And that'll be, as he said to you guys last night, family time, I think time with his inner circle. And we just want to honor that for him.
I saw Hermione Jones say this. Like, it's crazy how, like, the cutthroatness of the NBA comes for everybody, and that even came from Michael Jordan. Like, the way Michael Jordan's career, like, ended with the Wizards. Like, people kind of forget how bad it ended. Like, he played, they underachieved is harsh because, like, they weren't that great, but, like, clearly he didn't make them a playoff team, make them a very good team. And the owner got frustrated with, like, his inability to get the most out of Kwame Brown and the young guys. It was Abe Pollin back in the day. And, like, Michael was expected to come back once he retired to be, like, run the team as president of basketball operations again. And he was fired. He was not only he retired and was immediately fired from the job that he was supposed to have going back to his role. And he lost his ownership stake. Like, it was also a whole business thing. He get rid of his own, like, all this was like a handshake deal that, I'll get my ownership stake back. I'll be president of basketball operations again. All that went away because of a owner and being frustrated with how things ended and not feeling like he got what was promised to him by Michael joining the team when Michael didn't want to come back. It was the owner that pushed Michael to play because the team was so bad. He was like, we need you out there to justify this terrible product that we have. So I only bring that up because, like, I hear Rob Pelinka say honor, and I don't want to diss Rob Pelinka, but he sounds so disingenuous when he says it. Like, it sounds like somebody that is simply going through the motions of being respectful out of the sense of only being respectful. Like, I think he would be more than happy to have LeBron James tell him tomorrow I'm retired so I can get this money off my books and I can figure out what I'm doing the rest of the team. So he's like, we're going to honor him because he's honored the game. I want you to hear this last part because, again, I think people are taking what he said about the Lakers and how they view LeBron, but not taking the other part of this as well.
Of course, any team, including ours, would love to have LeBron James on their roster. That's a blessing in itself just with what he does.
Everybody's pointing to the fact that the Lakers will want LeBron on their roster. But I'm pointing to that any team would want LeBron. I think he's telling any team, hey, y'all are open for business on a sign and trade. We are more than happy to give you guys this guy. Like, is anybody, not just us, anybody would welcome the king, would welcome having a guy on their roster. I think for the Lakers, they look at it as, okay, if he comes back, all right, we have a pretty decent third option on our team. He's old, but he knows how to play. He's smart. Like, that's what I mean when I'm like, it feels weird to see this ending for LeBron in this way because for a guy who wielded so much control, right now it feels like he doesn't have much control. Do you read this the same way, or am I being a little too harsh?
I mean, look, Pelinka is dramatic by nature, right? Like that has been his disposition since he stepped foot in El Segundo. He obviously spent many years as an agent prior to that, and is very much. He fits the role of a LA, president of basketball operations, better than like central casting in terms of the dramatic nature that by which he operates. But yeah, I mean, it's certainly. When you're reading between the lines, I certainly come to a similar conclusion that I don't think that they'll be too heartbroken if he left. If a guy, like you said, if there was a guy you really truly wanted back, you're not gonna speak for other teams around the league and say, hey, would you guys really want this guy too? Like,
right.
like most teams wouldn't even think to fathom this guy leaving, right?
Yeah, I cannot imagine.
I
mean, Leon Rose don't speak. I can never imagine Leon Rose being like any team, us and any team would want to have Jalen Brunson on the team. Be like, what? We don't want any scenario with Jalen Brunson down to the Knicks. What are you even talking? Why are you even walking down that line? But that's a line I think he's openly, happily willing to walk down if LeBron chooses that option.
Yeah. I would be surprised if LeBron's a Laker next year.
Really?
For a lot of those different reasons. I mean, again, I think the question for the Lakers is like, we saw that team last night, obviously, and we've seen them, throughout the playoffs. No Luka Doncic, which is a major factor. But let's say you take LeBron off this team and you add Luka Doncic. Is this team good enough to go on a run? And what's now? You lose LeBron. That's a lot of money coming off the books. But then you're ultimately going to have to pay Austin Reeves. Mm-hmm. And so then that's going to be a lot more money back on the books. And so then now this is your team to a lesser degree. And you're going to have to then, win on the margins in other places. Is Luka and Reeves the best fit? We saw the report today about, Luka really wants Reeves back. Yeah. Obviously, they have a good rapport on the court. They have a good rapport off the court. But are they the best basketball fit for winning? As much as you'd love to get better defenders around Luka, better bigs, around Luka, you also understand that I don't know if he can be the only ball handler on your team. Dallas tried this, years they tried it. And of course, they had Brunson, but Luka was doing 90% of the ball handling, and they realized we got to go get Kyrie Irving because and honestly, Brunson taking that next step was the first step in that, and then it was we got to go get Kyrie Irving. They had Dennis Smith Jr. when he got there, but obviously Dennis Smith wasn't really doing much. They just put the ball in Luka's hands, but. So I think even they understand, they understood at that time, and I think the Lakers understand you do need to have another really good secondary ball handler to take the pressure off of Luka, because he's going to wear down if you don't have another guy. So they're unlikely to get rid of Austin Reeves, although there will be a big market for him as well. It's just they've got to figure out. Like how does this become a championship roster, and is it even possible? I mean, you have to try because you have Luka Doncic, right? You made this trade, you didn't tear it down, so you've got to figure it out. But it's just tough when you have a player like LeBron who's been your best guy, and now is getting paid all this money, and now it's coming off the books, but you're going to lose him for nothing, right? More or less, you can try and finagle a sign and trade. Maybe that's where this ends up. But how much are you really getting back for 1 year of LeBron James? If you're one or maybe two, but likely 1 year of LeBron James from another team.
Yeah, that's going to be the interesting question, right? Like I was thinking about this today. Cause I think it was Kendrick Perkins who made the case that LeBron should join the Knicks next year. There's nothing of value I'm giving the Lakers for LeBron James. It doesn't matter how the season ends. Like where the Knicks are right now. Reasonably speaking, they'll probably. I mean, I feel very good, but let's just say bare minimum they win at least one or two games in the conference finals. There's no scenario where I'm still giving up anything of value to give. I'm not giving up Bridges. I'm not giving up OG. I'm not giving up Cat. I'm not giving up any of those guys. So that's just
not
like
unless the Lakers decide to add on more value. Right,
right. Yeah, they say, "Hey, we'll give you a bunch of first round picks." Right. Okay. Yeah.
Maybe I consider a Bridges trade.
Right.
That's about the only. But
that's the only way I can see that happening.
Not going to work.
No. So, and it's the guy's 42, going to be 42 years old. Like you ain't trade for. Yeah. Forget about his production. He's a 42-year-old basketball player. Like I don't care about his production. Like you have to factor that in terms of his trade value. I know you can say, well, the money you'll make in marketing, all different things. Those are things I don't care about, right? I'm a basketball fan. I'm a basketball observer. That's not James Dolan's money. Doesn't matter to me. I can't speak for any other NBA owners around the league. But like, I don't know what his value is in a signing trade, and then he also got to agree to the money that it will be coming with him, right? Like he's got to agree to the $25 million or $30 million if it's a Bridges trade, or and that's a whole nother thing. Like, So I don't know. I don't know how this thing ends. I don't think he's retiring. He just did not sound like a guy that was retiring. So I'm not expecting that to happen. But we'll have to see how this ends up shaking out with LeBron James moving forward. Glad to have Kendall on here. Kendall, of course, he's my co-host on our new Buzzer NBA Draft Show, which we're really excited about. That happens every Thursday exclusively on the Buzzer app. So you guys definitely want to make sure you check that out. Difference makers. Slide into the DMs, as we say, for our difference makers draft show every Thursday at 6 p.m. And Kendall, I definitely want to give you thoughts on some of this playoff stuff too. But let's get to this NBA draft lottery as well, because I have so many thoughts. This is one of those things where the results weren't crazy per se, but because there were so many variables that we had to factor in, and because the draft lottery in recent years has been so unpredictable, I think it was kind of hard to really kind of make any case for where this is going to go, because as we mentioned on Difference Makers on Thursday, like it did feel a little bit like this could be not a one-size-fits-all draft, where it's like kind of regardless of what happens, this guy's going to go number 1, this guy's going to go number 2, this guy's going to go number 3. It seems like there is some variance among NBA draft scouts and NBA draft people about where any of these guys go. The Washington Wizards, they came away with the number 1 pick in the draft. This is, of course, the first time they had the number 1 pick since John Wall. John Wall was there, which I thought was really cool. He seemed like stunned that they won it, which I don't know why. It's like you had one of the best odds to win. But this is an interesting scenario to me, because this is a team that is kind of like, it's not like the Pacers per se, because the Pacers were in the conference finals, NBA finals, last year. They won the conference finals last year. But this is a team that, like, is kind of moving away from, like, the tank game, like the rebuild game. Like, they traded for Anthony Davis, who they're trying to convince to stay. They traded for Trae Young, who is going to stay. Like he's on the team. And, like,
sounds a lot like Dallas last year.
I know, yeah, and they have Alexander Sarr, who is a guy who they still believe in, and he, I know he's a looter in the riot, but he did put up some pretty decent numbers. So they have some pieces that I think they look into next season and say, we're competing for playoffs, and now we have a guy that we actually center this whole thing around as a number 1 overall pick. Feels very much in line, I think, for the likes of a Debanta or a Peterson to go here. Where do you look at in terms of where the Wizards will go after winning the lottery?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because when the lottery first ended, I think we saw an immediate kind of in draft circles online. The immediate reaction was like, okay, it's going to be Debanta 1, Peterson 2, Boozer 3, Wilson 4, Wagler 5, and then maybe the draft starts at 6 to a lesser degree. And we'll talk about all those other teams in a minute. Yeah. But, that was the immediate reaction. But I think as, the days have now gone by, and people have stepped back and more intel has started to trickle out from Chicago, where the NBA Draft Combine is happening. I think we're hearing that it may be not as settled as, we immediately thought, given the teams that were picking in those spots. Look, Washington, the case for Debanta makes a lot of sense. Positionally, he slots right in at the 3, where, you drafted Trey Johnson at the 2 last year. Mm-hmm. You have Trae Young, you've got Sarr, you've got Anthony Davis, and they drafted years ago.
They traded Avdia last year too.
Yeah, they traded Denny Avdia. You had Koulibaly a couple years ago. You drafted. He's been okay, but he's kind of more of a role player. Keyshawn George has had a good start to his career as well at the wing. Was a good young prospect, but not a guy that you pencil in as a starter on a playoff team just yet. And so Debanta fits right in with that core that they have. But at the same time, when you're picking number 1, are you picking for the team you've got now, or are you just picking the best player available? Especially when you have so many special guys in this draft. When we look back, 10 years from now, it's like when the Clippers drafted Blake Griffin. I mean, Blake Griffin was an awesome pick. Nobody's gonna clown it, but they could have got James Harden, right? They could have got Stephen Curry in that draft, and I don't remember who the point guard was on that team. I guess they still had Eric Gordon, if I'm not mistaken. He was drafted the year before. If we would have said, they can't draft Curry or Harden, they already got Eric Gordon, right? Blake Griffin's the perfect fit. Like, you look back 5 years later, or even the idea that they got Chris Paul, like,
Right.
it's still Stephen Curry, right? No matter what, it's like, but if you would have picked Stephen Curry, that would have changed life. You'd probably have championships.
Yeah, you would have drafted one of the top 15 players of all time.
Right. So at that point,
there's never a debate about fit when you're drafting guys. It's almost like to be honest, it's a weird one, but it's almost like why we don't kill the Rockets for drafting Hakeem Olajuwon, even though they lost Michael Jordan. It's like, okay, I mean, you drafted a top 15 guy of all time. I mean, like, you won 2 titles. Like, what are you gonna do? It was fine.
Right. And so that ultimately is the goal, right? When you're picking number one, is can we get one of those top 15 all-time guys, one of those top 50 all-time guys? And ultimately, they're going to have to do that work and try and figure out who they think that guy is. If they think it's Debanza, then sure, draft him. But if they think it's Darren Peterson, and, don't say to yourself, well, we got Trey Johnson last year, so, where is he going to slot in? Because if you think Peterson's better, and you think Peterson's better than Trey Young, then you can't think too hard about that if you think he's also better than AJ Debanza, right?
And the reality, too, is that – the reality, too, with the Wizards is that there isn't – like, they're a bad team. So there's minutes to be played for guys, like, even if they don't start. Like, Trey Johnson can still play 25 minutes a night coming off the bench. Like, and Darren Peterson's not going to play 48 minutes, So that's the other thing, too. I think some teams –
No way he's playing 48 minutes. Is he playing 38 minutes?
Fair point. So, like, sometimes they do that, too. They do this thing. It's like, what happens to this guy? I'm like, he goes to the bench and is a viable piece on the bench. Like, it's fine. Like, he's 20 years. Trey Johnson is 21 years old. Right.
They're just stockpiling guys who play the same position that are all pretty good and just figuring it out. If a guy gets hurt, then all right, next man up. Now you're up playing 25 minutes again.
Yeah, sometimes I think people think of NBA drafting almost like football, where it's like, oh, I already got a running back. I don't got enough carries. But it's like, no, it's a 48-minute basketball game, and guys are playing less minutes than ever. Like
5 guys are on the court. Yeah.
Yeah, 5 guys are on the court, and now it's also become so positionless now that like there's no reason why they won't try Peterson and Johnson in the backcourt together. Like he can find 25 to 30 minutes for a guy, even if you draft Darren Peterson. So I don't think that should be part of their conversation. I think Johnson shot the ball really well. I thought he played well last year. He had some injuries, which was also a little bit of an issue with him at Texas too. But I mean, I think he looked fine. Like he was kind of like a forgotten guy, like because of how bad the Wizards were. But I thought he was fine for a rookie. He looks like a guy that could certainly be a valuable player for them moving forward. But I mean, if you're talking about a guy who's getting Kobe Bryant comparisons, you can't be like, hey, I got to start this guy at the 2. He has to be my starting shooting guard. So I'm going to pass up on who I think is Kobe Bryant to draft AJ Debanza. If that's what you think, right? Like, now if you don't like him, or you don't think he has the right mindset, or you don't think his game's all that, like that's another thing. But if you think he's all that, you shouldn't be saying, hey, like, sorry, we got Trey Johnson. He's got to start at the 2 because we drafted him at number 6 last year. To hell with what you did last year. Your season and your build starts now. Like, it starts with the number 1 pick. Whatever happened before kind of doesn't matter. When you get the number 1 pick in the draft, none of that stuff matters. It happens. Whatever happens now in terms of moving you forward to trying to hopefully become a championship contender.
Yes, and once you get the number 1 pick, hopefully it doesn't always happen, but hopefully the tanking is over, right? And given the way the lottery odds are next year,
definitely need to make sure the tanking's over.
Yeah, the draft's not as strong. Like you're trying now. This is now, you said, the start of the ascension for the Washington Wizards. I think the really look, if the lottery is rigged, I don't know if it is or if it isn't, but if it is, then the NBA certainly has a sense for drama and a sense of humor with putting the Utah Jazz at number 2, right? Because I think it creates a very interesting scenario where, of course, everyone understands that AJ Debanza is a kid that played at BYU, a kid that played at Utah Prep his senior year of high school, and also slots in pretty well with the Utah Jazz, who obviously have a new ownership group with Ryan Smith, who's been there a couple of years now, a very energetic young owner. BYU alum and heavy booster, who also probably helped get AJ Dubasa to BYU, and of course Danny Ainge, also another BYU alum, booster, and a guy who is running the Utah Jazz, coming over from Boston, with obviously his son Austin Ainge also coming over, who's currently the president of basketball operations. The obvious elephant in the room is that they would have loved to have gotten the number 1 pick so they can get AJ Dubasa. Right now, they're currently at 2, and he might not be on the board. Yeah. And so this is where, again, now not only Utah, but then also Washington has to do the work to say, is our goal right now just to come out of this draft with the best player and not think about what we can get from Utah potentially, or are we understanding that, look, we might not be drafting the guy who's number 1 on our board, but the gap between 1 and 2 is not as big, and if we can get 2 or 3 extra first round picks, a lot of people using the Jason Tatum Markelle Fultz analogy, where the Celtics had the number 1 pick, came to the conclusion that Tatum was 1 or 1A, 1B, whatever they thought in that draft, and said, well, we're willing to trade down from 1 to 3 and just pick up next year's Philly first round pick, which was, I believe, Sacramento actually at the time. Yeah. We'll take Jason Tatum. And it ended up being the next year being the 14th pick in the draft. It ended up being Romeo Langford. Certainly not a player worth, trading down if you don't get the best guy in that trade. But they understood that they thought they were getting the best guy in that trade, and they were right. Yeah. Ultimately. So
I mean, the question I would have though is, if you're Utah, who are you targeting if you're trading down? Like, I think Washington, right? Like, who are you targeting if you're trading down? Like, because to me, I don't. How far are you trading down? Are you trading down just one spot?
Right.
If you're trading down one spot, obviously it gives you still the litany of Peterson and Boozer and Wilson.
Right.
So it gives you that opportunity. The reason why I brought the Jazz, though, potentially trading down, because my thing is, if you don't have an opportunity to draft AJ Dubasa, do you consider trading down? Because you already got Keontae George, who is kind of a star. Again, I think people really don't watch the Jazz, but if you look at his numbers, if you have ever watched them, he's nasty. He's really good. I don't know if putting him next to Darren Peterson makes any sense. And then maybe it means you trade him. I would actually consider maybe trading him and getting assets for him, because I would still put Peterson's ceiling probably at a little higher, even though I've already seen George be a 23-point scorer in the NBA. But maybe more than that, whoever he averaged this year. So that becomes a tricky thing. That's why I wonder with Utah, if you can't get the Banta, and Danny Ainge has done this before, do they target Darius Acuff? They say, hey, Brooklyn, I know you're desperate because you screwed this thing up again, and somehow you landed 6. Or Sacramento, I know you're desperate. You lost 60 games. You're number 7th pick. And we know there's a guy who could be there at 6 or 7 that we think is better than the guy at 2. And do we decide, hey, let's trade down? Brooklyn's a little tricky because they have no first round picks. Or at least they have some, but not a lot. They fought like hell to get this one for this year, and then end up being only 6. So they're a little weird. I'm sure the Kings, you'll have a lot more opportunities to make a first round trade for them. The team, I'm curious about maybe doing something like that.
The team that I look at in this lottery, that should be the most desperate to try and get up into the top 4 if they can is the Clippers, right? I mean, I think the Clippers ended up in a really weird spot where they're probably the biggest winner of any of these teams.
They shouldn't be complaining about nothing, right? They shouldn't even be here if it wasn't for that stupid trade by the Pacers.
Yeah, I mean they didn't think they were gonna have a pick. We thought there was a strong chance they weren't gonna have a pick. They certainly think they weren't gonna have a pick going into the season.
Right.
Then they make a very bold move to just dump Ivica Zubac at the deadline, realizing that it's over for us. Even though they wound up playing pretty well down the stretch and got themselves in the play-in mix.
James Harden helped that for sure, though.
Yes,
James Harden saying, "Hey guys, I'm done here. Even though we've won 17 of 20, I'm done here."
Yes,
I put on enough tape to convince one of these other teams that I can maybe help them win the championship. So get me out of here.
Yes, The Ivica Zubac trade, netting you, a chance at a top 5 pick, and of course, or any top 10 pick, a lottery pick, and of course, it winding up at 5 as a top 4 protected pick. The Pacers now, without a first round pick after an entire year of tanking. We'll talk about them, I guess, in a minute. But if you're the Clippers, getting up at 5 is a massive win. But at the same time, if we all think the top 4 will be Boozer, DeBansa, Wilson, and Peterson, well, the Clippers, the next 4 or 5 guys are almost all going to be point guards. And the Clippers just traded for Darius Garland, who, again, we talked about Trae Young and Trey Johnson. We talked about Keontae George. Is Darius Garland necessarily good enough for me to say, if I think a guy is really special, I'm not going to take him? Is this a Dylan Harper, De'Aaron Fox situation if you're the Clippers? And you say, look, I'm just going to take the point guard, whoever I think the best guy is. Because a lot of people are putting Wagler in that spot because he's 6'6". He's a bigger guard. Yeah. He can play off the ball. He can shoot. So he's a more natural fit next to Darius Garland potentially going forward. But again, no one's going to care if Keaton Wagler winds up being Dante Exum, right? Not to throw that comment. That's a real dark. It's a real guy look like. Therefore, you're comparing them, and B, very like darkest timeline version for what could happen to Keaton Wagler. Yeah, but it's what was the darkest timeline for Dante Exum, right? He was a top 5 pick in a great draft.
That's fair.
So but the thing with and obviously we all have the questions about Wagler's physical profile, his pedigree coming out of high school, 1-year wonder, all those questions. And so the floor, I think, is a little bit lower for this kid. So regardless, and I really love Wagler. I think he's a top 4 guy on my board. But regardless, if you don't think he's the best player, if you're the Clippers, do you just take him because you need a 2-guard potentially, or do you say, or if you think Acuff is super special, you might just have to take him anyway? But again, ultimately, I think they should be trying to move up, because if they could get Wilson, if they could get Boozer, if they could get any of those other guys that are in the top 4, that would be massive. And so you mentioned a team like you maybe trying to trade down. Problem with the Clippers, they're another team that they don't have anything to trade. Unless you're trading Kawhi, but I don't know if any of those teams, have the money or really want Kawhi Leonard. If Kawhi Leonard might retire if he gets traded to Utah, so I don't know if any of those situations really make sense for a trade up, but they're the team in the most awkward situation.
The reality is they probably shouldn't be making this pick. The reality is if Adam Silver really wanted to show that he really is the law when it comes to this league, he would not allow the Clippers, after what they did with the aspiration scandal,
that would be
Leonard.
Bold.
It's what should happen. Bold. I'm telling you right now, it's what should happen. I'm not even calling for it, because I would prefer to see the Clippers try to do this thing with a young draft pick, and what happened to the Pacers was hilarious to me. I think they should feel the pain of having a potential Hall of Fame player go somewhere else. But I don't feel like the Clippers should be allowed to have a first round pick this year. I didn't know they would land number 5. I didn't know where we go. We all, I think, kind of assumed that they just wouldn't have a pick, so we didn't think much about it. We were like, how many picks did they got? How many have you taken away from them? What are you taking away from? Now that they have the number 5 pick, I think now I'd be okay. Well, now that's your penalty. Maybe you don't even need to take any more picks. There's one pick. Your number 5 pick that you traded for Ivica Zubac, that is no longer yours. Now, I don't think it would stand. I don't think he will do it, because I think the Clippers could probably sue. And they probably say this isn't our pick. We got this pick through a trade, so you can't take away.
It's a different asset.
Yeah, you can't take away an asset we acquired from a different team, and they would probably win, which is probably,
thinking we'd be able to have it.
Right. So they probably would win in court. And I would make clear to the audience, I am not a lawyer. But that feels like a pretty sound case that I don't know how.
But I watched Daredevil Born Again.
Yeah, I watched Daredevil Born Again enough to know a few things. Damn it. I know the port of Brooklyn is not. You can do anything you want, unless you find a way to get the governor involved to remove the mayor. The port of Red Hook. Nah. So yeah, I do feel like that is something that would be interesting. I posted on social media. I was like, the greatest thing would be, when the Clippers about to make their pick, Adam Silver shows up like Teddy Long in SmackDown, be like, hold on a minute, there, player. That's what I'm waiting for. I don't think it will happen, but I mean, in theory, they shouldn't be allowed to make the pick. I just don't know if the
I'd
NBA
be
has
shocked
the legal
if
standing to do it.
I'd be shocked if the guy who, when the Nuggets and Wolves had a brawl, that had multiple players running off the bench, nobody got suspended, and when Victor Wembanyama put an elbow to the throat of a guy, didn't get suspended for the product is gonna all of a sudden grow some cojones and throw the hammer down to that.
I'm
degree.
like, are we low key back in the '90s era of basketball where anything goes? Like, because between all these things you just mentioned are things that were important linchpin things in the David Stern era of the NBA. Like,
right.
Oh, you committed a extremely flagrant play in a playoff game. I don't care that everybody wants you to play the next game. You're suspended. Oh, you left the bench even though you did nothing. I don't care, Amari Stoudemire or Patrick Ewing. You're suspended. Oh, you tried to circumvent my cap and do something shady. I don't care if you're an up and coming team like the Minnesota Timberwolves. I'm taking away all your draft picks.
Yeah, no picks for years.
Yeah, like that was what David Stern.
The precedent's already been set in NBA
right,
history.
He's already set the precedent of what these things are. I've seen too many guys throughout the course of NBA history be suspended, teams be punished, players be not allowed to play because they left the bench, and it feels like anything goes right now. It is a weird thing. I've been saying just on the Wemby thing quickly. I'm happy he's not suspended. Like I prefer honestly, what David Stern did in those things was wrong. Like besides
right.
I was
not good for product.
Like he was wrong in my opinion to suspend the Knicks and suspend Amari Stoudemire and Boris Dio. Like that was wrong. Like he was too heavy handed. So I'm happy where we are. I wish Adam Silver. I think he almost does it out of respect, but which then goes back to him still not having the spine that probably he needs to be the commissioner. But I would love for him to come out and say, hey, these rules don't exist anymore. They're wrong. Like, we got it wrong back then. I was only the deputy commissioner. I can only do so much. But now I'm a commissioner. I'm telling you that they're wrong. So, no, we're not going to suspend the guy. It's playoff basketball. He elbowed him in the neck. Who cares? Let's go. He's a star. No, we're not going to suspend Aaron Gordon for leaving the bench. We need him the next series for this game to be competitive. Just say that. Just say what we know is happening.
The truth of the matter, EJ, is that, look, Adam Silver is got to do his job. And the job that Adam Silver is doing, even though the title is the same, the job and the mission and what needs to be done as the role of NBA commissioner is different than what it was for David Stern, right? David Stern, where the league was struggling from, they felt they had an image problem at times. Obviously we all talk about the Malice in the Palace, things of that nature. They felt like we have to crack down in some of these areas because, it's hurting the league, it's hurting the brand, it's hurting our viability. Where the NBA's got their problems right now, they feel like the networks don't want their product. They feel like fans don't want to watch the regular season. Like fans don't want to watch the postseason at times. Suspending Victor Wembanyama doesn't fix that problem. It just doesn't. Now, or suspending Nikola Jokic for, or whoever else is on the bench, Jaden McDaniels or Jamal Murray or whoever, that doesn't fix that problem. That wasn't really the problem, 20 years ago. It wasn't, people don't want to watch playoff games, so, we can't suspend Amari Stoudemire. It was terrible for the product. It might have, tilted, outcomes significantly. But they also understood we gotta throw the hammer down now because, if we don't, this thing could get out of control again. And it ultimately did get out of control at times in 2004. So yeah, that's the part that we also do have to understand is that yes, while the precedent was set, and again, the Timberwolves situation that's a whole nother Timberwolves Clippers situation. I don't know what's different now besides Glenn Taylor wasn't worth $70 billion. That might be the only difference. So I don't know.
Yeah, Glenn Taylor didn't have more money than God. That was
yeah. I mean
yeah.
honestly, we talked about like the idea of them not taking the idea of them taking the Clippers pick away. If again, I always say if the lottery's rigged, it probably isn't, but if it is, what if like the NBA decided, let's give them their pick now so that they have something to they have something to go forward with when we void Kawhi's contract and take all their picks for the next 3 years. They at least aren't at ground zero, because that's what they would be at if they took all their picks and took Kawhi.
Yeah, exactly, and it'd be even worse if they then took this pick to go along with whatever punishment. Yeah, that's why I don't think it's gonna happen. Like they're gonna say, okay, you got lucky. Here's your number 5 pick. And then there's nothing else gonna happen. But again, if we were being real, I'm like, they probably shouldn't be allowed to pick in the first round after what they did with the Kawhi Leonard situation. In terms of how the rest of this draft lottery shook out, again, Memphis at 3, Chicago 4. We mentioned the Clippers at 5. Nets and Kings. I don't tell you, like to be number 6 and number 7 after losing 60 games. That's why, like, these folks that are so mad about the anti-tanking rules here, now I'm gonna defend Adam Silver. Like, get it over yourselves. Like, teams that lose 60 games on purpose do not deserve top picks. I'm sorry, you don't. Like, you artificially put your team in a scenario to be unwatchable and to go anti-competition with this league, to try to game the system. Sorry, you got played. You were stupid to do it because it didn't guarantee you anything. And now the Nets are sitting there with 60 losses and a number 6 pick to show for it. The Kings, and now to be fair to Kings a little bit, they didn't come in the season trying to tank. They just, I love my guys, Scott Perry, but I don't know what he was doing with this roster. They just weren't a very good team, and then they became a tanking team. But like, if you lose 60 games, like I'll be excited for next year to have these teams actually trying to get out of relegation zone. Like the relegation zone thing in soccer works. Like it's actually fun. I mean, it wasn't fun for me this year with my Tottenham Hotspur, but like it's fun for the football. I mean, European football community to see like, oh my God, is Tottenham gonna get relegated and they having to win these big games? They had to beat Chelsea and they had to beat Aston Villa to, get out of this thing. Like, that's good for the NBA. I don't know why people are so down on it. So I'm happy that those teams landed the number 6 and 7 spot. Good. You shouldn't have been screwing around this year. Maybe if you actually made some moves to improve your team, maybe you wouldn't be looking for, a lifeline through the NBA draft lottery.
Yeah, I would have made the relegation zone even more aggressive, personally. I wouldn't even done because every team's gonna have, I guess, 3 balls or at a certain range, and then if you get
I don't think they should be allowed to have a number 1 pick. I just say you can't have number 1 pick.
I'd be like, if you don't move up, like you're now like 8 or 9, like you're the floor, instead of it being 4 or 5 is now like actually you're 8 or 9 or 10 if you're the worst team in the league. And that's, you still, again, I would, if you want to get lucky, again, I don't know if the lottery's rigged or not, but if you want to get lucky, you win the lottery, whatever. But no, I mean, it's rough if you're Sacramento or Brooklyn. The saving grace is that, again, the best players at those spots are point guards, and those point guards are going to be really, really coveted.
Yep.
And those teams could use franchise.
Those teams need point guards. Yeah, they're in a.
Brooklyn drafted, arguably 4 last year. I mean, certainly 3 between Yegor, Saraf, and Traore, and then Danny Wolf's like a big point guard basically. So they drafted 4 ball handlers, but I don't know if any of them are really any good. And so, if you wind up with Acuff, or you wind up with Kingston Flemings, or even Michael Brown, that guy may walk in day one, be the best, point guard prospect on your roster, maybe the best prospect in general on your roster from day one. Same with Sacramento. The interesting nugget with the Kings I read today is that Scott Perry coached Darius Acuff Sr. At Eastern Kentucky years ago.
Wow.
And so,
and I'm sure with his connections now, he's now worked with Leon Rose for X amount of years. I know he kind of was inherited, but I'm certainly the Leon Rose, Calipari. I was gonna say Kentucky.
There's a web. There's a web.
It feels like saying Kentucky, but
he's from
Arkansas.
Detroit. Scott
Right.
Scott Perry was in Detroit.
Well, yeah, there's a lot there. There's definitely a lot there. Now 7 is gonna be tricky to get Acuff. I think. I don't think Acuff falls.
Acuff had a tremendous day yesterday with the measurements.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that on a DM this week.
So yeah, I don't know if he's gonna fall that far. People don't love his defense, obviously, and we saw guys. Yeah, I mean, I say when it comes to all of these guys, when it comes to the guard position, it's like Juan Soto, right? I don't draft him for his defense. I don't bring him in.
Yeah, what are we doing?
There are certain players. I mean, Luka Doncic is one of the worst defensive players in the league, and he's a top 5 player in the league.
One of the best players in the league still. You gotta play offense. Got to score to win games.
For some of these teams that are as bad as these teams that we're talking about, I'm not going to get too hung up on it. But we've seen guys in these playoffs, at times get hunted, right? And so our team's going to look at that and say, I can't, take a guy like Acuff. At the same time, Kingston Flemings had a pretty rough measurement situation yesterday, and not that much bigger than Acuff.
Right.
We thought he may have been an inch or two taller. They're pretty much the same height. He has a pretty rough, wingspan measurement yesterday. So
and that's a guy coming from a defensive system that you're thinking will not be a problem defensively. So
yes,
so now you're like, now you have questions about is he actually going to be the impact defender I thought he was going to be, because he's not that big. He's not as big as we thought he was, at least. And also with Acuff too, I just feel like we gotta be careful with the guys that are when they're asked offensively to literally do everything. I'm always skeptical of going crazy about what they do defensively, because if you watch Arkansas, I mean, Acuff was asked to do everything, and he played almost every minute.
They didn't have another point guard on the roster.
They didn't have another point guard, so he's always bringing the ball up. Teams are always pressing him. They're always trying to take the ball out of his hands.
He was hobbled.
That was the way. Yeah, he got hurt. That was the only way to beat Arkansas, was to cut off the head of the snake. I mean, it was, and knowing also how Calipari coaches, I could totally see him saying, "Hey, man, don't get fouls, don't kill yourself defensively. You need to score 25."
And he had the length and athleticism around him too.
Right. Yeah. Also, he had defenders everywhere. So, I'm not. I mean, that's why I literally threw my hand up. Whatever. You don't care about his defense, all right. Someone is gonna land a potential all-star guard, because they were obviously was worried about his defense as a 19-year-old. I mean, this is ridiculous to me. That's rare. I hear something from a scout that makes me actually do that, but that was my reaction to that. I'm like, are you actually kidding me? So yeah, the Sacramento and that Sacramento Acuff stuff is real. I'm very fascinated by. Well, we can go on forever in this, and I do want to get some NBA playoff from you real quick before we move on, and also some NFL stuff. Are you going to hang out? Are you going to rock with me for the rest of the show? I know we're just doing this live, unless you got something.
Yeah, it should be good for another 30.
30? Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I do want to ask you about the Bulls at 4, because they are the team that made the big leap. They are the team that feels like, oh my God, something really great happened for us. And this is a team that typically doesn't have good draft lottery luck. They have not had lottery luck since Derrick Rose. In many ways, people, conspiracy theorists will say that this has been their penance, right? Is that they've never had their lottery luck, because they got Rose in a weird, jump that they had years and years ago when the odds were not flattened, and they flew up out of nowhere to get Rose, homegrown guy. Anyway, I'm trying to lay all the tea leaves on why that was weird, but. The Bulls at 4, I think, are interesting. They stink. They're not a good team, but they aren't as bad as some of these other teams that are on the bottom. I think of some of these really bad teams at the bottom. They definitely have a guy in Giddey that has played really well there. Matas Buzelis is their young player that they're still developing, hoping he could pop into a true, legit starter on a winning caliber team. And the Bulls, I think, right now are just searching for that superstar. They're just searching for that one guy to place around these other pieces that they just haven't had enough support yet to actually win any games, because those guys haven't had to start there. But now at 4, you may have an opportunity potentially. And man, if I'm Chicago, I think this is going to be probably the conversation that's going to be maybe the most, I don't say contentious because we're not contentious with each other, but just in terms of like the most disagreement back and forth, I think is going to be about Caleb Wilson. I just feel like that guy is the right guy, perfect player, perfect mentality for exactly what the Chicago Bulls need. Like, he didn't get to do what he was, I think, about to do at North Carolina, which was to kind of bring them back to like respectability as one of the top programs. I don't think they would have lost in the first round. I don't think Hubert Davis would have been fired. I think he would have. Honestly, we haven't. And there's still conversations happening about should he go in the top 2. Like, but that's with him missing basically 2 months. But like, I think a lot of the conversations that he was about to have with the Carolina Tar Heels and what he was doing there got stifled because of his injury. But this guy, he is all business, no frills, wants to smoke, and we're gonna talk about the elite athleticism. You watch this guy's tape, he flies off the screen, literally. Like the guys with his athleticism, his size profile, and the way that they're not supposed to move like that. They damn sure aren't supposed to have a mid-range jump shot like that either. This guy looks like money. And I'm looking at Chicago Bulls at 4, assuming the top 3 goes how we think it may go. And I feel like the Bulls may come away from this and be like, our franchise is revitalized because we got Caleb Wilson. That is just, and I'm not saying that in a joyful way. I'm a Knicks fan. I hope that they're awful forever. But I'm being real. I love the fit of Giddey playing next to Wilson, him being a pass receiver, him being a guy that can finish off Giddey's passes. I like the athletic profile of adding him with Buzelis. I'm looking at the Bulls potentially and being like, you guys got a lifeline, one you've been looking for years. You finally got it if you can find a way to land Wilson at 4.
Yeah, I think Wilson to the Bulls has been the one pick that has just been the one prospect to team fit and pairing that I think everybody has stamped as the best one in this draft based on the lottery results. Look, they just brought in Bryson Graham as their new head of basketball operations. He came from the Atlanta Hawks. Before that, he was only there for a year, but before that, he was with the Pelicans for a long time, for like 10, 15 years. He was under David Griffin and Trajan Langdon. And his claim to fame in the Pelicans organization was being the guy who sort of, discovered Herb Jones and the Herb Joneses of the world and the Trey Murphys of the world, Dyson Daniels as well, those types of guys, right? And then he goes to Atlanta, and he brings in some of those guys, makes the trade for whatchamacallit, he makes the Derek Queen trade, that just only because he knew he was in New Orleans for like a 2 weeks while Dumars was there, and then went to Atlanta and makes Derek Queen trade that got the Hawks their top 10 pick this year. But a lot of the profile of that Hawks team that we saw with Daniels and Nikhil and Jalen Johnson, that's the kind of team that he wants to build in Chicago. And he coined the term SLAP, which stands for size, length, athleticism, and physicality. And I don't think there's a guy in this draft that personifies that more than Caleb Wilson.
Just call him Mr. Slap.
Yeah,
fits right into that identity they're trying to build over there.
Yeah, 100%. So, it's a perfect fit for what they've got built. He's a great culture guy. Honestly, I think the big question for Wilson is going to be, does he get to 3 or does he get to 4? Does maybe the Grizzlies at 3 like him better than Cam Boozer? I don't think he would go 2, although, Ainge is also a bit of a wild card. You never know what he's going to do. And if Devance is not on the board, now all of a sudden you could throw out the BYU political stuff. At that point, it's maybe just do they take, the prodigal son Cam Boozer or not? But
that
they think
that becomes a tough conversation.
very. I mean, Carlos Boozer is a scout in the Utah Jazz front office. So
yeah,
but he's not maybe the best fit for what they've already have built.
right.
But and I don't know if Cam Boozer wants to live in Utah. He's probably already lived. He's probably lived there before.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he wants to go to Utah. He's probably been there plenty of times, certainly. But no, I mean, the question for the Bulls is will Caleb Wilson get there? Like you said, I personally am not the biggest Caleb Wilson fan.
I know. It's crazy to me.
I don't know. I haven't found really anybody that's not a Caleb Wilson fan.
I know,
and
which is why not liking him is weird to me.
Yeah, look, as we always say, I mean, do I like Caleb Wilson? Sure. Like, I mean, if he was there on the board for the Celtics, I would do backflips, cartwheels if he was on the board. I just don't know if I like him at 4 or as a top 3 guy necessarily in this draft. I think if you're the Bulls, he is a great chess piece. It reminds me a lot of the football team that, we talked a lot about. We talked for years about, the Detroit Lions and their rebuild, how they went and got Penei Sewell in the trenches, and they went and got Aiden Hutchinson on defense in the trenches, and sort of built, from the trenches out, right? And I think getting Caleb Wilson, I don't know if he is a superstar. Certainly there are some traits that suggest he might be a superstar. He's very, very much like an old school, like, man, in 2001. I mean, this guy's the number 1 pick maybe in this draft, right? We've seen these guys, that go super high. You look back at some of the drafts back in the day. So he has a lot of the traits that, again, when KG was playing, we would have been like, this is KG. And so I'm just going to draft this guy number 1 and we move forward. But to me, I wonder if he's a super role player, right? I wonder if he is an incredible Swiss Army knife. He's gonna pop. Like, he's gonna be a good player. I don't think this is I'm drafting Taylor Hendricks or I'm drafting Pat Williams if I'm the Bulls like, or Jonathan Isaac.
Jump up their spine talking about Pat Williams, man.
Right. Like, I don't think it's that. I just wonder if he's a very different player, but I wonder if this is kind of a Jabari Smith kind of conversation where it's like, yes, there are some star traits in there, but like, is the production star, is it going to wind up being star level, or is it just really good, like $80 million, $100 million player, $100 million in today's day and age, which is, again, your 4th, 5th starter potentially on a really good team. But if you're the Bulls, you don't really have that. Like, you don't have a lot of guys that I look at on your roster and say, I want this guy playing on a playoff team. Again, I like Giddey, I like Buzelis. Caleb Wilson's is a win. And where you're at and what their roster build is, I don't know if they can afford to take a guard because you already have Giddey. Like, so I don't mind taking Caleb Wilson here. I don't know if it's like, I don't know if Bulls fans, I just think Bulls fans should temper their expectations. I mean, they are like, all right, now we got Caleb Williams on the football side. We got Caleb Wilson now.
Caleb's taking over the city.
Yeah, we've got our new face of the franchise. I don't want the expectations to go out of control. He might live up to it, and I might look crazy in 3 years, but he's the one guy that I'm a little concerned about, like, those expectations getting out of control. If he was going 4 in a different spot, like to a different place, those expectations would be a little different. But then you have guys like Jay Williams going on the lottery show and being like, this is, what do you say,
KG at minimum. He's at KG's floor. Like, KG's his floor, and Giannis is the ceiling.
Giannis is the ceiling. He said Jermaine O'Neal and Giannis, like, combined hybrid or something like that. I'm like, I don't know about that. I just, that's where I kind of queasy. I get queasy, and I'm like, I don't know.
Well, listen, when it comes to, as much respect to the folks at ESPN, but when it comes to their draft comparisons, it's outlandish. You knew as soon as there was going to be any draft content on ESPN, it was going to be how many current and future Hall of Famers are going to be named as comparisons in this half hour of a show. We got to 5 pretty much.
The best,
and this is a great draft, but even still, it's crazy
that ESPN has and has had over the years. Bill Simmons was okay, but the best was honestly Kendrick Perkins. Kendrick Perkins was like, he was comparing guys to average players. Now, to be fair, he also, I think it was like the 2024 draft he was working on. It wasn't a whole lot of superstars you were going to compare Zachary Reese-Shea to.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
He wasn't like, oh, Zachary Reese-Shea is, Jason Tatum, right? He was pretty
Devin Booker.
He's pretty honest. Yeah, he's pretty honest with his takes. I give Kendrick Perkins that credit, but yeah, no. The Grizzlies are a really weird team. I mean, we know the way they kind of operate.
About the Grizzlies,
they are not. They're very much like OKC light, right? Like they are very, we fly by the beat of our own drum. They hire a lot of draft Twitter guys. They are not your conventional kind of team. When everybody was saying Zach Edey, not an NBA player, they were like, we thought Zach Edey was the best center in the draft. Yeah, he's a top 10 pick.
And was a good pick.
When not only, and it looks pretty good. He's got to stay healthy, which for a guy that big is always a thing. And not only do they value him as a top 10 pick, at this point, he's kind of their franchise player. And their other franchise player, it's crazy to think based off of where most people would have thought coming out of the draft. But their other franchise player is a rookie who had a really good year, and Cedric Coward, who, played 6 games at Washington State. Nobody really knew he was. He was at Eastern Washington before that, and ended up being a really good pick. And other guys, will have to stay healthy, and they were tanking last year, and things fell apart. But they're not gonna do the conventional thing. So they're at 3, and I think most people are pegging Cam Boozer because he kind of fits the profile of the guys they've kind of taken. High production, high character guys, dribble, pass, shoot. But at the same time, also a guy who analytics, metrics, and models love.
Yeah, they're gonna love them. Yeah, from that standpoint.
So it feels like a guy you could just peg to the Grizzlies, but I don't know. Sometimes we typecast these guys and they say, actually, we think Caleb Wilson's
I'm very curious.
Best player in the draft.
I'm very curious. This is a Caleb Wilson team. Because they just got rid of Jaren Jackson, who they loved, but they just realized it's time to get rid of that money and restart. And in some ways, they're different in many ways, but there are some similarities where he fits right into what Jaren Jackson does well. And what's interesting to me, though, Edey is really good, I think, because he's an athletic guy, twitchy guy. If you think Edey, who moves well for a guy who's 700, but still, like he's still a big guy, right? The thing about Boozer that I find interesting, because you mentioned their franchise guys, and you did not mention Ja Morant, who is still on the roster. Whether he's on the roster or not, it's irrelevant. And Caleb Wilson is not at all like a character issue at all. But there's a part of me that wonders, will they feel a burden to go for the guy that's like the all-American character guy in Cam Boozer? The ultimate, like, winner guy. The ultimate foxhole guy. Like, the guy that you would... If you had to ask me what player are you least worried about ever getting into any scandal among anybody in this top 15, number one pick for, I think, almost every draft scout and every draft I would say Cam Boozer. I wonder if because of how they've been scarred with Ja, will that lean them towards Boozer over Wilson, even if they think Wilson is the better player or the better fit. I'm really curious about that fit. It's why I think they'll go Boozer. But I can make a strong case, because how I've mentioned how much I love Wilson. I can make a strong case for why Wilson makes more sense for the Grizzlies at 3 than Boozer does. But with Wilson comes more, what is perceived as more risk, because we didn't see as much of him during this season. His team didn't win as much. And, even though he's also a very high character guy too, like the Boozer name, the expectation that he knows what it takes to be a pro,
pedigree, 4 state championships,
like this guy, he's like Johnny Walker on paper, in Falcon and Winter Soldier, where you're like, this guy, high school football state champion, won all these medals, of course. Like, they literally, it's like they're picking the next Captain America, like they're picking the next Captain Memphis. Like, it feels like this guy fits perfectly on paper to fit right in and remove Ja Morant from that spotlight. So that is something that I'm curious
and
about. Will be a factor in what they're picking. We know Robert Parra. I mean, I know he does embolden that draft team to kind of do whatever they want. But he also feels like the walls are kind of closing in on his ownership. And I wonder if he comes in and is like, I need the guy that I know that everybody watched is great, everybody knows is great.
Because ultimately, that's a great point. Because when you're talking about, filling, like you said, you're filling the shoes of John Morant. This pick, number 3 pick in an incredible draft, a draft where people are saying this is 3, 4, maybe 5, 6 deep with franchise players, future all-star, perennial all-star type guys. Whoever you draft here is again, if you're moving on from John Morant, is going to be the replacement for John Morant as your franchise player, right?
Yeah.
Again, you still have ED, you still have Coward, but they now become the priority for your rebuild. And Cam Boozer, from a ability to be the franchise guy, because of the name, right? Like you said, like because of the name recognition, slots in right away, right? There is no, we got to do, the commercial appeal, which is the local newspaper in Memphis or the Daily Memphian. They don't have to do who is Caleb Wilson, article.
Right.
Months of digging into, because everybody knows who Cam Boozer is. They don't have to do that for Cam Boozer, right? We all know who he is. We certainly know who Carlos Boozer is. Like, and this kid has been a face on the basketball scene now for 4 or 5 years. So, and his commercials play constantly, even during the NBA playoffs. So I'm seeing him and his brother on State Farm.
You called that.
So.
No, you called that. No, you called that. No, you called that. I'll call that. I've seen that commercial now a zillion times.
Yeah, so it's an easy thing to sell to your fan base, and that's sometimes where, we saw the Phoenix Suns make that decision when they drafted DeAndre Ayton over Luka Doncic. Yep. It was, look, we got the local kid from Arizona who's a 7-footer, looks like David Robinson, or we could take this from Spain, or played in Spain, from Slovenia, that nobody's ever heard of. What's the call here? And if the owner, who's also from Arizona and went to Arizona, jumps in and says, I want the 7-footer, there's nothing you could do, even if the head coach is from Slovenia.
Like, I know what this kid's about, man.
Yeah, that is still the weirdest draft. We've talked about that for years now. I don't know what Sacramento. Yeah. Vlade was talking about it the other day.
The Sacramento, he mentioned, he tried to say, I knew. That whatever excuse he came up with was so cocky.
Yeah, he was like, Luka. Yeah, Luka is not. He's a big city guy. He wouldn't have worked in a small market. We already have Fox.
And then also he's a point guard, and we couldn't play him with Fox. Even though I'm watching Fox play with a zillion point guards on another team, and they're gonna maybe go to the Western Conference Finals. Thank God that guy's not running a team anymore. Like, Vlade, thanks for your years of being
I'll never forget his
Sacramento King and a great Laker, but he sounded insane during that clip.
He always brings these arguments, and I'll never forget his opening, the Marvin Bagley press conference. I don't know if it was the Bagley press conference or it was the right after they drafted Bagley press conference, where they asked him why didn't they take Luka Doncic. He was like, better fit, better player. And so, again, he's saying all this other stuff. You had Bagley, better fit, better player.
Vlade, better fit, better player. Yeah.
So, yeah, that between those two teams, and then the Hawks, I don't know what happened there either. We know they wanted the whole Golden State Warriors thing, so they were like, Trey's got to be our guy, and it's just there's such a harmonic convergence of stupidity between 3 different franchises.
And then somehow the team that drafted him did the ultimate stupid thing, was trading him while he was in his prime. It's like Luka Doncic. Yeah. What has happened in his career has been very weird with how teams have evaluated him.
It truly shows you. And I think the NBA is smarter now than it was in 2018. But it truly shows you that, like, there's still, again, the Luka trade was only a couple years ago. It was only last year. Like, there's still a lot of dumb teams in the NBA. As much as we like to think
dumb teams are smart. Again, we just had a team trade away a potential top 5 pick for Ivica Zubac. Like, and then the owner, the president felt so bad about it because he was getting so much heat that he had to post a public apology for making the trade. And then he tried to go on Pat McAfee and say, well, I'm not apologizing for the trade. I'm apologizing for the sense that, it didn't work out the way we thought it was going to work out. And then he put in his post that, well, I thought, Luck was going to be on our side this time. What? And that's a smart guy. I mean, Kevin Pritchard, I think. I think he's one of the best general managers in baseball. I mean, in the NBA, in basketball. Easy. I couldn't believe what was coming out of his mouth and what was coming out of his social media account. I think a lot of people didn't even retweet or post that. Because I think a lot of people assumed it was a parody account. Like, there's no way Kevin Pritchard, A, has an X account. And B, there's no way he'd post on his X account that he's sorry for the trade. And there's damn sure there's no way he's going to say the reason why I made this trade was I thought that Luck would be on our side if we keep our pick.
I figured out Kevin Pritchard had an X account a couple months ago while all the tanking conversations were happening. He did like a Q&A with he was like, hey, I'm doing a Q&A with fans, like drop your questions. And I had the same thing you just mentioned. Like I had to be like, is this actually Kevin Pritchard? This is the only stuff you can get away with in Indiana. You can't get away 1,000%. With doing this stuff in New York or Chicago or LA. You see an account that only has 10,000 followers.
Right, I'm like the president of the Pacers should have more followers.
Yeah, you would think you'd have more, but then you see followed by Mark Stein. You're like, oh, well, right, this has to be real.
Yeah, that's the only reason I thought it was real. Because I saw all NBA reporters that actually follow him. I'm like, oh, I guess this is real. Like, this is not a parody.
Yeah, and so
I mean that and just on the Pacers real quick. I know we talked a lot about the Clippers aspect of that. That trade is a disaster class. I don't think there's any defending it.
Rick Carlisle, right? He tried before the lottery. He was like, they asked him about it. He was like, either way, we have a contingency. If we get to pick, great. If not, we have contingencies where we're still in a great spot, or we have a separate plan that'll be just as good. And when I heard that, I was like, that just doesn't make any sense. I mean, I guess
there is no contingency for losing your first round pick. There's none. You don't have a first round pick. This is the thing. This wasn't like a swap deal. It was either top 4 or nothing, and now you have nothing but just Ivica Zubac, who you just replaced for Miles Turner, who you lost last year.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where now a lot of pressure comes down on how it's. You look at the Celtics, right? The Celtics are ultimately now in a very similar situation. We a month ago or even a week ago were like, you had those lonely nights, EJ, when your team gets bounced out of the first round of the NBA playoffs, and you're like, Jaylen Brown is streaming, and you're like, should we have just tanked this year? Like, maybe we should have been bad, right? Look at the Pacers. Like, the Pacers are about to get a top 5 pick, and we just had this great season for nothing. And then you look at the Indiana Pacers, and now they had this bad season for nothing also. I mean, they were bad and they didn't get their top 5.
Nothing. They got nothing out of this.
And so, again, you can look at the glass half full, glass half empty. The glass half full portion will be, look, now, if Halliburton comes back and looks like how Tatum did, then you just come back and you say, look, we traded, like I said, we traded Miles Turner in our really bad season that we knew we were going to have a bad season for Ivica Zubac. We just didn't get a first-round pick. And we just got to hope that, we have the same momentum we had last year.
And I guess the other little silver lining, I guess you could say, listen, my guys didn't get any wear and tear from this NBA season. I was tanking. I was playing them weird minutes. The Nemhards and the Pascals and the Neesmith, these guys,
I'd be lying to you.
Log big minutes because they just came up with NBA Finals run. They didn't have that. They basically got a year off. That's the only thing.
I'd be lying to you if I'd be lying to you if I said I watched more than 3 Pacers games this season.
I only watched the Pacers against the Knicks. I'm telling you.
Did you guys play them opening night or something like that, or opening week? A prime time game?
No, that was last year. I don't think we had them any. Okay. They were smart enough not to do anything stupid this year. The Knicks lost them one of these games. They played them after. Right. You're probably thinking about they played them right after the NBA Cup. They won the NBA Cup in the next game against the Pacers. But I don't think that was a national TV game.
Right. But I don't know if anybody emerged this season. Like Johnny Furphy wound up getting injured. That was
maybe
unfortunate.
Huff.
Yeah. Jay Huff was your starting center. I mean, I mean, the Mias Queta, emerged this season up until the playoffs started. I guess we'll figure out if Jay Huff is a regular season merchant or if he's good enough to be a 5-man in the NBA. He emerged so well that they wound up trading their top 10 pick for
for a center. Right? They're like, this guy ain't it. So
yeah,
we'll roll the dice and hope that we land top 4. Well, we need to get a new center next year. It could be Jay Huff.
So yeah, they are. Look, it's a lost season, and when you spent all year being bad, thinking like the plan, I can only imagine as a Celtics fan. Again, we, we're faced with that decision: do we be bad? Should we be bad, or should we fight for wins? And they fought for wins and ended up winning a lot more than they thought they would. And again, at the end of the day, you don't have anything to show for it, but at least the winning culture, stays alive. If you're Indiana. You spent a whole year being bad, and you didn't end up getting anything for it. If you spend that whole year being bad, thinking Debanza, Boozer, Wilson, Peterson, you're watching all these guys in college basketball. Look, credit to Lawrence Frank, man. We ask ourselves, why does Lawrence Frank? How has he kept his job for as long as he has? Maybe it's because he knows where all the bodies are buried at Aspiration. I don't know. He got a contract extension like immediately after he met with the NBA or right before he met with the NBA. So we could all listen to Pablo Torre for his breakdown on that. But credit where credit's due. They could have said, oh, we'll do top 10 protected, or we'll give you our 27 pick or our 28 pick.
Right.
And they were like, no, they held out. Dude. You got to give us this. And if you want Ivica Zubac, this is the price for him to play. And they took the gamble. And they ended up winning. Like you said, the Pacers come away looking really bad. But again, now it's a lot of pressure on Tyrese Halliburton. Hopefully he comes back healthy. Obviously a lot of people reacting to the shingles and, public appearances and whatnot, so hopefully by the time the season starts, he's back at 100%. There will obviously be a grace period for his actual, production, but it's tough. They're going to have to figure this out.
See, they better hope that number 5 pick doesn't become like some superstar. And it's like, this is the draft, not to be trading number 5 pick. It's just real. This is the draft. Like, and the crazy thing is, like, Ivica Zubac is a good player. Like, he's a good player. He's a great defensive player. Like when I was doing the show over the weekend, like I was doing Orange and Blue Bloods, I was like, because I was talking about how the Knicks draft luck was insane because the Pacers lost their pick and the Nets fell to 6. But like, I was like, Ivica Zubac is probably somewhere between top 7 and 10 centers in the NBA. Like, he's a good player. It's just, it's insane to trade a top 5 pick potentially for Ivica Zubac. Like, it's just there's no excuse for it. There's no explanation for it. Like, you could have traded other pieces and gotten a guy who maybe wasn't as good as Ivica Zubac, but you would have kept the number 5 pick.
This top 5 pick could have got you,
and maybe could have drafted
Giannis.
Yeah, exactly. You could have used or use that pick to maybe get a superstar. You have nothing. You have nothing.
You could have been like, actually, we love you, Pascal, but we'll trade Pascal Siakam and this top 5 pick for Giannis. And the Bucks would have done that in a heartbeat. Given what you may be
getting a top 5 pick, right? It's a disaster class for the Pacers. You could not have. This could not have worked out any worse.
They clearly thought that they really wanted those top 4 guys, and if one of those top 4 guys wasn't in the mix, they weren't as excited. But now now we'll see. Like you said, you better be right, because we say it every year, right? Oh, there's only 4 guys, but there's always a guy.
Right. There's always a guy outside that top 5 that becomes a star. A very good player.
Right? Braden Burries, Chris Senack. Like, you never know who it's going to be. That winds up being. Nobody thought Jalen Duren. I mean, I really like Jalen Duren, but a lot of people didn't like Jalen Duren or think that he would be a guy who'd be a perennial all-star. Bam Adebayo, same thing. I mean, there's always guys outside of the top 10.
Devin Booker, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander now is going to be famous.
Best player in the NBA, arguably. Nikola Jokic, both of the best. The 2 best players in the NBA were not top 10 picks. Their best player, their franchise player, was a top 15 guy in the NBA when he's healthy. Was not a top 10 pick either. So it's man, they rolling the dice. They have the luxury of doing that because they were good, and this is always going to be it's kind of a luxury to have a top 5 pick. But now this is your window. Like the window would have been extended a decade potentially. Of like, all right, well now we've got our guy. If you draft a superstar, where now it's like, well, this Pascal Siakam window is now your window to win a championship. And some may say, oh, well, they got to the finals last year. They may have. I mean, if Halliburton doesn't get hurt in Game 7, they may win it. But was that real, or was that I don't know. Like all these teams, the Knicks have clearly gotten better. We'll see if the other teams in the Detroit's clearly gotten better. Like we don't know where Indiana is. I just watched a team that let's also be frank. I know they were tanking, but like they started the season with all those guys out there, and they were bad.
Right? They were bad. They were a bad team without Tyrese Halliburton. When I kept trying to tell people, I'm like, they're not. I've watched them try to play without that guy. They stink. They're not that good.
Yeah, they were.
Tyrese Halliburton is a great player, man.
They weren't trying to lose games from the jump. Like it was like the Celtics. It was the Celtics, but in the opposite direction. They just realized we're actually not that good without Tyrese Halliburton. So we there's no point in faking the funk. Now the pressure is all right. Well, put Tyrese Halliburton on a bottom 10 team in the league. Are they now a champion coming off a major injury? The window is razor thin now, and it's Ivica Zubac and it's Pascal Siakam, and then as long as those guys are playing at a all-star level, they will still be competitive. But again, your window just shrank 5, 6, 7 years.
Kendall Stewart, man, this has been a lot of fun. Let people know where they can find you and promo our new show, Difference Makers, on Buzzer.
Yeah, I mean, again, you could find me on Buzzer, at New Jan Ken. You can find me on Twitter at New Jan Ken, and we'll be talking more about this NBA draft lottery on Thursday on the Buzzer app on Difference Makers, our NBA draft show. I'm about to go grind some tape this combine, that's happening right now, NBA draft combine today and tomorrow. So we'll have a whole recap of the combine, of the lottery, coming for you guys on Thursday. It'll be exciting. I love watching the NBA draft combine. I remember last year watching Ryan Nembhard and Maxime Reynaud thinking, man, these guys look really good. And Nembhard doesn't get drafted. Reynaud falls all the way to the second round. Those guys wind up being steals for Dallas and Sacramento, respectively. Austin Reeves is a guy that looked great playing at the combine.
The ultimate guy is Jalen Williams, right? Like, this was a guy that some people were unsure if he was where he was going to go in the first round, and this guy was killing people, and they were like, this guy's got to go in the lottery. This guy,
Dante DiVincenzo,
he's probably the best player. Yeah, another guy. Those are Dante DiVincenzo and Jalen Williams are the two best players I've ever seen playing at the combine. I'm like, these guys, like, it was very quickly guys that were fringe first round picks. Like, these guys need to go way higher.
A lot of people thought Dante was going 15. Back.
Yeah.
A lot of people thought he was going back to Villanova. He was kind of like, I'm 50-50. He had the Mickey, I won't call it the Mickey Mouse run, but he had, the kind of lightning in the bottle run at Villanova in the Final Four. And a lot of people thought he was going back. And then he went to the combine and was clearly the best guy. Shut it down after a day and was like, I ain't going back to Villanova. It's
over.
I'm going to the league. So there's a lot of talent that could be discovered by those scrimmages. Tremendous idea. I know we gave Adam Silver we give him a lot of flack for a lot of things, but the combine scrimmages are one thing that has improved, and the combine in general has improved under Adam Silver.
Definitely.
Compared to David.
Yeah, he's made them show up. Guys have to do some testing, which is great. I mean, I'm watching.
They got to give their medical.
Yeah, I'm watching Cam Booz and AJ Devanza actually doing drills. I'm like, this is crazy. Like, this is not. Those guys did never show up. They wouldn't be there. And
shout out
never know that
Grant Williams and TJ McCollum.
Yeah, I know. Only them guys are right. It still was not good for
not
the
really
players.
a win for the players.
It's a win for us. It's a win for us when to try to talk about these guys. Again, the NBA players like, what the hell? These guys were double agents. Like, what the hell did they get out of that CBA? I have no idea. So no, Kendall's right, man. The NBA Combine actually has become like an interesting event and a cool event, thanks to what has been done with some of the rules and making more guys participate, highlighting the scrimmages in a major way. So yeah, we're gonna have plenty on the NBA Combine. I know we did a ton on the lottery. We'll have some on the lottery too on Thursday for our buzzer audience only. But we'll also obviously do a ton of NBA Combine stuff, so we'll have more of that. Kendall, it's a lot of fun, man. I'll see you when I see you, and we'll talk on Thursday.
All right. Thanks for having me.
You got it. Great spot there from Kendall. Glad to have him on. Like I said, this is a weird show. I didn't think I'd have a show today because I was like, oh, I'm in a spot where I'm going to be traveling, and you guys will never believe. Like I was on my way to travel to Philadelphia, thinking that I had this these days set up to hang out with my family, with my brother. Shout out to my brother Shamari. Hopefully you guys of course have seen him on New Generation Media, and hopefully we'll have him doing some kind of content on Buzzer with me someday. But I'm supposed to hang out with him for a couple days, and luckily I looked and was trying to figure out something about what we were gonna do to see the weather, and then I looked at the time of the event and I was like, this isn't the time of the event that I was told. What's going on? And then I looked, and I texted, I was like, oh my god, this is the wrong day. Thank goodness I found the cheapest Amtrak ticket you could find. So the refund that I got, that wasn't a full refund, was enough that I know I lost $10. It wasn't anything crazy. But I'm like, I was about to leave my apartment. I was about to leave my New York City apartment to go to a whole nother city on a totally different day, a wrong day. So I avoided that catastrophe, which is why I didn't think I could do 40 days and counting today. I thought it was going to be another week where we aren't able to do Tuesdays and Fridays. So this is a week where we'll have a Tuesday show, we'll have a Friday show. Full disclosure, next week is the week I have to be away, so I'm not going to be able to do a Tuesday show. Maybe we'll do a Monday show. We'll figure out something. So there won't be a Tuesday show next week, but there will be a Friday show. But we will have 2 full days of 40 days and counting. And we're getting word here, thanks to my dad, who's probably watching. He's texting. He probably knows that I'm doing stuff. He probably texts often in case I'm doing something to know information. I can get rid of the expectedly on this because according to reports, Daryl Morey has been fired. I would have loved to have got Kendall on this. But that is, I'm putting it up here, hoping my dad is accurate on this. He says it's breaking news. I'm going to assume he's right. But Daryl Morey has been fired as the head coach, as the general manager or president. They are a general manager with who's the guy? I don't know. And Elton Brand's the general manager. But Daryl Morey apparently has been fired as team president. My dad says he is watching. Hey, Dad. So thanks for the update because I did not see anything online on this. Daryl Morey's gone. He's fired. At this point, it was the right move. He probably should have been fired years ago, to be honest. He had not been doing... for a guy whose team was, still making the playoffs, except for last year when they had the disaster, right? And they got VJ Escombe, which looks like a pretty good pick. A pick that was actually lamented when he made it. But for a guy who was making the playoffs every year, he was not doing a good job. The Sixers, they got him in part because he was supposed to kind of get them out of this rut of being in the middle. Okay, you did the whole process thing. You had these other jokers running the team that really weren't real high-end basketball executives. They needed a real adult in the room, a guy that could really put together a championship team. He got so close in Houston. He deserved this shot with the Sixers. But the fruits of the return of the Daryl Morey era just weren't enough to warrant him keeping his job. I mean, the Joel Embiid contract extension, it was horrible. But it was one of those things that you just, for his injury, health, and his history and everything that he's been through, the fact that they're stuck with that guy at his age for the years that he has left on his contract, 2+ years on a player option, they're stuck. The Paul George move, which I'll be honest, at the time, I actually thought was a pretty good move. I thought Paul George looked like he still had plenty left in the tank after his last season with the Clippers, but that has looked like a disastrous move. He was terrible. in this conference semifinals against the New York Knicks, where he basically was the first quarter man. He was good for a first quarter, and then he ran out of gas. He had a PED suspension, and then he said it was mental health related, and the realities of trying to come back from an injury and how challenging it was. He kind of alluded to the fact that may have led him to use PEDs. This is not a good situation. And he takes over the Sixers. They had one season where they did win 54 games. That was in 2023. That was the most games they won under Daryl Morey. But that still ended in disappointment. They lost in the second round of the playoffs. That was when they traded for James Harden. They had multiple postseasons where they, again, they hitched their wagon to James Harden to be, the second fiddle to Joel Embiid, and that was his big move, right? Because Harden was this guy that he believed in Houston that won him all these games in Houston, and it blew up in their face. Harden collapsed in postseason games. Then he couldn't figure out a way to get real compensation for him in a reasonable way, and that whole relationship blew up. It was not a good tenure. The winning percentage will suggest that maybe it was okay. 56% winning percentage. He was 270 in 2012 overall during his time in Philly. They made the playoffs in all these seasons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the 6 years he was there. They made the playoffs, so they were a playoff team, but they never got past the second round of the playoffs, which has been Joel Embiid's whole issue his entire career. It sounds and feels as if maybe there became friction with Joel Embiid and Daryl Morey as time has gone on too, with just the reporting and some of the tea leaves you read from Joel Embiid's comments. He had to go. He had to go, and I like I said to start this show, like how they lost also was embarrassing. Like to me, I can't speak for Sixer fans. I'm not a Sixer fan. I know as an NBA observer, it stripped away all good feels about how the season ended with the fact that, or rather the first round ended, where you beat the Boston Celtics, you come back from 3-1, you hadn't beaten the Celtics since the early 80s. Like, for Philadelphians, that meant a lot. But then to go against New York and get swept, dominated in 3 of the 4 games, and then your home arena gets taken over by Knicks fans, it just removes all the good feelings and all the positive vibes from that Celtics series, because when you went up against a team who was a real contender, you got pantsed on national television, basically. That was what the Knicks did to the Philadelphia 76ers. They went up to them and just pulled their pants down in front of everybody and made everybody laugh. It was embarrassing. So, Daryl Morey's gone. I'm very curious. I would assume Elton Brand is also gone. This is all very new, obviously. I'm reading a tweet from Shams. I actually I should be able to share my screen with you guys. Let's see if it will allow me to do that. Let's see if this will work. Reasons. Morey and team owners Josh Harris and David Blitzer met on Tuesday evening in Philadelphia, and the decision was made to part ways. So this decision actually was, so it was made like very recently. He said this evening. It's 8 o'clock. So this must have been a couple hours ago where they met. And I had already in the cut that there was the report from Howard Eskin that this was expected to happen. So here's another interesting note in this. Head coach Nick Nurse will continue his role into a 4th season with the Sixers, sources say. 4-time NBA champion architect Bob Myers, the president of sports for Harris Blitzer Sports Entertainment, will be tasked to lead the search for the new head executive for the Sixers, and will oversee the franchise basketball department in the interim. It's kind of curious why, like, Bob Myers must be, like, that Harris Blitzer Sports thing. Like, I know he's got stuff with the Washington Commanders, and I'm sure he's being paid, like, crazy money, but, like, why can't Bob Myers just run the team? I guess is my initial question. I would assume you're paying him enough that he should be able to say, okay, listen, like, I know you're the head of, like, whatever, but right now you're running the Sixers. Perhaps that's not what he wanted, and perhaps he probably maybe had something in his contract where he's like, you're not going to give me that dumpster fire, like, just because I got this role with Blitzer Sports Entertainment. Like, that's got to be in writing that I'm not going to just be thrown in to that fire. But Bob Myers now oversees basketball operations in the interim. I'm curious how long that will be, because there is a draft coming up. There's free agency coming. I mean, we're in May now, so it's not like this is it's not like this is a team that never made the playoffs, so therefore like their season ended in early April, and then they could do a search. Like by that point, you could have general manager, president in place, and Bob Myers really not have to make tough calls. But to me, it sounds like he's gonna have to make tough calls, and he's already made one. Like Bob Myers has made the decision, or maybe the owners have made the decision, that Nick Nurse is gonna remain the head coach regardless of whoever is hired as president. Which I don't like. I never liked that dynamic. What I will say is I don't feel like Nick Nurse. I don't think he did anything to be fired. First of all, he's dealing with something that's very tragic, and I do want to put out well wishes to Nick Nurse and his family with the death of his brother. I mentioned that on Orange and Blue, but I don't want to mention that again. So I'm happy he's not fired, quite frankly, given what he's dealing with personally. But I also think from a basketball standpoint, I don't think he did anything to be fired. He was not given rosters that were good enough to get past the second round of the playoffs. He engineered a comeback that was improbable. Nobody expected when they went down. And what we've learned over the last day or two is that it sounds like him and Tyrese Maxey have a very, very close relationship, and Tyrese Maxey is the franchise player of the team. So in some instances, I guess you could feel like it would have been tough to move on from Nurse. I just don't love the idea of a team president, general manager being saddled with a guy who he just simply may not see eye to eye with, which happens a lot. Like, it has nothing to do with anything personal or nothing to do with, guys, whatever. But you just might get a guy. He's like, I don't trust this guy or whatever. Like, I was reading Blood in the Garden, which again I've said before. It's probably gonna become a drinking game. All my shows, how much I talk about. I recently read Blood in the Garden, but like Van Gundy and Ernie Grunfeld did not get along. They didn't like each other. There was reasons why that dated back to Stu Jackson being fired years ago, and some history that they've had back in the day. But like, you invite perhaps maybe further contention in the future by keeping the head coach and bringing in a general manager or president, unless you're bringing in somebody he's worked with. You're not bringing in Masai Ujiri. We now learned he's with the Dallas Mavericks, so you don't have that option. So it's not going to be a guy who he did work with. Ironically, I guess did Masai fire him? I guess he did. Yeah, Masai fired Daryl Morey. Nick Nurse in theory. But they did work together. He did win a championship, so maybe that will be someone that would have made sense in theory. It makes you wonder if maybe there's a Toronto connection, a Toronto front office guy from that Masai tree that maybe they pull from. I'll be very fascinated to see what happens with the Philadelphia 76ers. But, Daryl Morey, weird career so far. He's going to be able to run a team again. He's done enough to still get another opportunity. He has a career winning percentage of, 60, nearly 60%, right? 59.8% career percentage. So he'll run a team again. I just felt like, and one of the problems I felt like is, shout out to the people who do Sixers content. I'm obviously friends with Spike Eskin. He's a mentor of mine. But I've told him this when we've argued and talked smack between Knicks and Sixers stuff. But I've said, like, it'd be nice if the team and the fans actually held Daryl Morey accountable for what he was supposed to bring to the table. Like, he was there to get them closer to a championship because he got so close in Houston, and then he never had, a big man like Embiid, and he'd be able to do it, do you hope? And again, the guy never got close. The closest he got was 7 games against Boston in the second round, 23, and Jason Tatum scores 50, and you lose. That's the closest that they got with him. And we could, draft picks have been pretty good in certain spots. Obviously, you inherited Embiid, but you just looked at Philly this year, and you looked at how lacking of depth they had. Like, they had no bench. Some of these guys that have been, they were guys that they drafted, late first round, and guys that were undrafted that had to play. They were okay for guys who were second round guys or guys that, or had to play as undrafted guys, but they still weren't enough to win a playoff series or do anything. So he didn't do enough from that standpoint of really filling out a full team. He definitely was able to find some stars. He found Edgecombe. He found Maxey. Like, he got them some stars, but he hasn't built a team. And then he saddled them with some horrendous contracts. The Embiid and Paul George thing is the reason why the Sixers are stuck in limbo. The one thing I will say, to be fair, is one of those picks he drafted was Jared McCain, which was awesome. And then he traded him for nothing. And to be fair to Daryl Morey, we will have to always ask the question of whether or not that was a Daryl Morey issue or a Josh Harris issue. Because I can't imagine that you would trade a guy that you drafted. That is probably one of the reasons you, as for a guy who's on the hot seat, is one of the reasons you would point to and say, hey, look at how good a job I'm doing. Remember I drafted this guy? Like, it would be surprising you'd want to trade that guy for essentially nothing. But that feels more like a Josh Harris issue than a Daryl Morey issue. Like, that feels like, hey, we don't want to pay the luxury tax, and we got these glutton guards, so let's just get rid of one of these guys. And that's where the Sixers fan, just like I implored them to hold Daryl Morey way more accountable for not getting the job done, and it took them a while, but they finally got there. It's where I also then implore them to hold Josh Harris accountable, which it sounds like they're starting to do. It sounds like the honeymoon's definitely over with Josh Harris as owner of this team. And they lost Jared McCain, who's going out there and just putting up huge numbers with the OKC Thunder off the bench in the playoffs. And this is a guy that absolutely they could have used against the Knicks. I don't know if he wins them the series, but he would have been a problem. He would have made things more challenging for the Knicks than it was. They maybe don't get swept if they have a guy like Jared McCain out there. So it's an end of an era for Philadelphia, man. You got Daryl Morey out as team president. Again, I'm very curious and fascinated to see what this will mean for the rest of the front office. Like, again, Elton Brand, who was there, he was actually there prior to Morey. He actually inherited Elton Brand as his general manager. I'm curious, and Elton Brand was running the team for a little bit, and basically they were like, Elton Brand's over his head. He needs he needs somebody ahead of him. So I'm curious if Elton Brand has a role moving forward. But I don't know. That those are questions that we'll have to see asked. But Daryl Morey officially out as Sixers president. This reporting from Shams Charania. And shout out to my dad for telling me live that this happened, because otherwise I might not have seen it. There's a reality that might not have crossed my purview. So this has been a fun episode, man. We didn't get to everything we were supposed to get to today. I'm trying to think of what would be something I would want to talk about. I'll get you quickly just this NFL schedule. I think it is pretty cool that the NFL, we're getting closer and closer to obviously getting some NFL full schedule releases. But what we're getting right now has been some trickle down of some big games that we can expect for this upcoming year. And I'll be honest, I'm actually really excited about a lot of the games that they announced. Like, the NFL, they've been sometimes hit or miss when it comes to scheduling. It feels like this year so far they've been knocking it out of the park. Here's some of the games that they've announced already so far. I mentioned some of those. You saw some of those on the lower third before. But we already know we're going to have this. Obviously, Madam Chef just listed them all. But these are all come out over the last few days outside of the 49ers, Rams, and Melbourne, which is week 1. You got Giants hosting the Cowboys on week 1, Sunday Night Football. That's going to be John Harbaugh's debut. John Harbaugh having a debut against the Dallas Cowboys, a team that has owned the New York Giants, has particularly embarrassed them on national TV. I have been one of those folks that have risen my hand and said I apologize to national TV audiences who keep getting saddled with Giants national TV games against the Cowboys where we're non-competitive. I will say that this is the one. I'll raise my right hand so they know I'm not lying. I'll say this is the one that I think makes sense and I'm excited for. I think national TV audiences will want to see. The Dayball games and the Joe Judge games that they were putting on national TV against the Cowboys, I could not defend. I didn't want that, and I apologize for that. This one I think is a really cool opening day Sunday Night Football game. Cowboys got, always have juice to the Cowboys. Giants now with John Harbaugh, a lot of excitement. Good early test. They played a classic game early in the season last year. Russell Wilson threw 400 yards. So I think that's a pretty good Sunday night game. Your Monday night game in week 1 is going to be Broncos at Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes, assuming that he's back, hosting against one of the top teams in the AFC, a top defense. That is certainly a game that's going to be great. How about week 2? You're going to have Lions at Bills. So that's going to be the opening of new Highmark Stadium. And, there's been so much hullabaloo about this new stadium the Bills have built. And it feels like they've built this thing for like 100 years. It's finally built. They're finally going to play there. First game. I love that it gets a great team. Like, I know the Lions didn't make the playoffs, but we know they're a talented team when they're not injured and stuff. Like, yeah, don't give me the Jets. Don't give me some random ass team. Like, it doesn't have to be an AFC team. Like, we know that the real killers are in the NFC. I've been saying that for years. The NFC has the best team. The NFC is a much better conference than the AFC. People kept looking at me like I had four heads because, like, how can you say that? They have Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. Did you watch the Super Bowl? Did you watch the last two Super Bowls? Have you watched the NFL playoffs? The NFC is where the talent is. So, yeah, take one of these high-end NFC teams, bring them to the AFC, and let them face against the Buffalo Bills in a high-profile game, Thursday Night Football. That should be awesome, man. Jahmyr Gibbs and Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Josh Allen, new stadium. That's going to be great. I'm sure some Bills fans are like, what? Opening nights on a Thursday? That's probably one thing they kind of hate. But from a TV audience standpoint, I'm locked in. That's an awesome game. Some international games we're getting early. Ravens at Cowboys is crazy for Rio. I'm like, man, you guys walked out. That's a great Brazil game. They had a good one last year with Chiefs and Chargers. Ravens at Cowboys, that's a good one. Bengals at Falcons in Madrid. I don't really say much about that. So it seems kind of random. But then the other big one we announced, or they got announced this week, Eagles at Cowboys on Thanksgiving. And again, I love it. I love when the NFL puts actual divisional important games on these like holiday Thanksgiving kind of games. Like, some people say, oh, this should be more showcase for like random teams. No, I like it when the Lions are playing the Packers. Like, that's huge. That means something for the division. That means something for the playoffs. Like, putting like the Lions against, the Patriots or whatever, like, in theory, okay, it's like, back in the day, oh, Tom Brady's playing in Thanksgiving. It's like, all right, but I don't, like, this doesn't do anything for the playoff race. Once you get to Thanksgiving, we're in playoff time. We are in, like, trying to get positioning. So, Eagles having the Cowboys on Thanksgiving, which is probably going to be an important game in that NFC East at that point in the season, sign me up. Great stuff. Great stuff so far for the NFL schedule. I'm really excited. I can't wait. And we'll get more and more. I actually don't know when the official, if you're in the chat, if you know, I haven't had my chat up, by the way, so apologies if you've been commenting all the time. My dad commented. Thanks, Dad, by the way. He said anytime, son. Anybody you want to get in the chat section, anything we talked about today, of course, join the YouTube chat or any of these chats. The chat's a little weird. YouTube, I always see. For some reason, X and Instagram is like hit or miss sometimes, but try to comment, and usually I will see it, and I'll bring it up. But what I will say is I am really excited about where the schedule has been so far. Let me see if I can find real quickly NFL schedule, when the NFL schedule release date. Release date 2026. There's got to be soon because they've announced a great deal this week. Sometimes I feel like they announce too much. Thursday. Oh, perfect. So Thursday night. So we know Friday morning. Friday mornings, 40 Days and Counting is going to be full NFL schedule stuff. So there's a big show Thursday night. So how about this? How about you watch Difference Makers with Kendall and myself talking NBA draft stuff at 6 p.m. on Buzzer. And then, stay on Buzzer forever, whatever line content's on there. But if you want to then turn back over to NFL Network, then you could get some draft content, not draft content, some NFL schedule release. How about that? Sounds like a good Thursday to me. I think that's where I'm going to leave it, though, man. What a show. It went all over the place. Things happened that didn't expect to happen, and we got to talk some football, which I was really excited about. Glad I got to do this one. I'm glad I got to do this one on the Buzzer app as well, because shout out to Justin Tyler, who does tech work there. He really quickly was able to get me up and ready to go, and that was awesome. So I really appreciate him for that. And I appreciate you, the viewer and listener, who checking me out, man. So, of course, shout out to everybody watching me. This is 40 Days and Counting, streaming live, multiple spots. You can always find us on YouTube. New Generation Media is the YouTube channel. Just search New Generation Media. While you're there, do me a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Like this video. And if you can, give a comment in the comment section. Even after the video is posted, let me know what you thought about the show. Let me know what you thought about what was said. Give me your takes. Whatever you got, I want to hear it. Engage with the show in any way you can. Engage with the channel any way you can. We greatly appreciate that. Of course, follow me on X, where we're also streaming live. EJ_Stewart is where we're at on X. Action EJ is where you'll find me on Instagram, where we're also streaming live. And of course, today streaming live on the Buzzer app, BZZR, or just go to bzzr.com. Sign up for Buzzer. Awesome content, man. All verified sports content creators, sports journalists, sports media folks, athletes. You want to avoid the noise, the bots, the aggregator accounts, all the nonsense that comes with X or other accounts. And you want to just get verified people doing what they love, talking sports, trying to entertain. Buzzer is the place to be. Make sure you download the Buzzer app, BZZR mobile app, and go to buzzer.com to sign up. And it is a lot of fun, and they're doing a great job there, man. A lot of cool stuff being built over there at Buzzer. And of course, these episodes get podcasted, right? So if you want to listen to versions of Orange and Blue Blood, or so not Orange and Blue Bloods, I got so many shows now, I'm cycling through names. If you want to listen to 40 Days of Counting, of course, you can download the podcast. So just search a New Generation Podcast Network, and that's where you'll find all episodes of 40 Days and Counting. So maybe you're on the go, maybe you're driving, maybe you're working out, whatever the case may be. You can't watch the shows, but you do want to listen. I do post the shows on our podcast channel. The last one didn't get posted because of some technical difficulties, but typically almost all episodes get posted. So just go to New Generation Podcast Network, where you can get all of our content from New Generation Media. So you want to get Hero Talk. We have a brand new episode of Hero Talk that was out, talking about the Daredevil season finale and the latest regarding the Batman and a new Bane Deathstroke movie that's being developed. So a lot of fun conversation when it comes to Marvel and DC on the latest episode of Hero Talk. We also do, of course, Imperial Broadcast, which is our Star Wars podcast, hosted by Kendall Stewart, who you saw today, and my other brother, Shamari Stewart, who I thought I was going to see today, but I'm actually going to be seeing next week. Again, awesome stuff on there, so make sure you subscribe to the channel. Again, New Generation Podcast Network, wherever you get your podcasts. Of course, we got the ticker rolling down the bottom there if you're watching, and you can get all the information regarding social media and where to find the podcast on the ticker below. And that's going to do it for this edition of 40 Days and Counting. I want to thank my brother Kendall for coming on to talk NBA Draft Lottery. There's no one better I could have had on today. Again, make sure you check out our NBA Draft Show, an exclusive Buzzer show. Difference Makers every Thursday, 6 p.m. live. That's when you'll find us. So make sure you lock in Thursday evening, 6 p.m. for Difference Makers. Orange and Blue Bloods will be back next week out for the new episode later this week as well. And make sure you follow me again on X, EJ_Stewart, Instagram, @EJ. That'll do it for now. I'll see you guys on Friday morning. Take it easy.